is CNN.
Who are Larry Agran, Lenora Fulani, and Andrea Marrou? What makes them run for president? And does the American electoral system need to get beyond two-party politics? Welcome to Newsmaker Saturday. In Washington, I'm Charles Bierbauer. We'll ask Democratic presidential candidate Larry Agran, Lenora Fulani of the New Alliance Party, though she's running as a Democrat in the New Hampshire primary, and Libertarian Party presidential nominee Andrea Marrou.
From Washington, this is Newsmaker Saturday with Charles Bierbauer.
It was no surprise that George Bush this week formally announced he is a candidate for re-election. Bush's Republican challenger, Pat Buchanan, entered the race with national recognition derived from his TV appearances and newspaper columns. The 5 Democrats who will debate in New Hampshire Sunday have become at least recognizable faces. But next Tuesday, New Hampshire voters will face a list of 62 presidential candidates. Getting on the ballot is not a problem. Getting a foot in the political door is. For example, the former mayor of Irvine, California, Larry Agran, is running as a Democrat, though his problem seems to be the Democratic Party.
I ask by what authority, under what criteria I'm being excluded from participation.
As every player knows, when they go to spring training, everyone doesn't make the final cut.
Yet Lenora Fulani was on the ballot in every state in 1988. This year, she has raised enough political contributions to receive nearly $900,000 in federal matching funds. Andrea Marrou's Libertarian Party claims to be the 3rd largest in the U.S. So the debate is about more than whether these candidates should be admitted to the candidates' debate. It is about whether the U.S. is locked into a two-party system, whether anyone outside the establishment is doomed to be considered on the fringe, whether democracy is just a little bit undemocratic. I'd like to ask each of you exactly what your objective was when you entered the presidential race, knowing the odds you were up against. Dr. Fulani?
Mm-hmm. Well, I entered, one of the key things that I was interested in taking out was a response to the economic recession/depression in this country. I say that as a African-American woman who is related to by the white men who run this country. I mean, they relate to white women as if they don't have a brain in their heads. So I really want to underscore this because I'm not talking about challenging Clinton et al. From the vantage point of being more charismatic or more moving or, you know, on some other terms. I think that a key response to the economic collapse in America and how we have to challenge that is more democracy in America. I think ordinary people have to be brought into the process. I have a plan for doing that. And I think while Clinton, Tsongas, Kerry, Harkin, and Brown look more like the kind of people who should know about managing a country and who should know something about the economics, I think that the stuff that they're talking about has been tried time and time again, and they won't address why it is that it is failing. It won't come through. They won't deal with the process that keeps them from being successful. Did you set some
sort of a threshold or hurdle or target as to recognition, percentage of the vote, or anything in that sort? Since part of the problem that all of you face is recognition.
Well, part of the problem that the so-called Big Five in the Democratic Party faces recognition. I think the major problem that all of us face in this country is the lack of democracy and inclusion in that arena, and the way in which I think the political arena is so corrupt that if you're an ordinary person or extraordinary person and you're not rubber stamped by the honchos in the Democratic and Republican parties, you just don't get any play. And unfortunately, that's a statement about the country.
Mr. Agran, what hurdle did you set for yourself getting in here?
Well, I'm a seasoned politician. I've been in public life for 20 years at the state level, 12 years at the local level, including 6 years as mayor of the city of Irvine. I'm nationally known for some of our urban achievements in the city of Irvine, our planning achievements. But I came into this race committed to winning votes and to winning delegates and going to the Democratic National Convention with a call for new national priorities, bold new national priorities based on the end of the Cold War and an opportunity to bring home a peace dividend of $150 billion a year now that that Cold War is over. Bring home our troops from Europe and Japan cancel needless and dangerous weapon systems, end foreign military aid, and redirect those resources to the and the continued that are in fact bankrupting our country. This is a moment of truth for the country and for the Democratic Party. And I felt from the beginning that I could bring to this race a new perspective, an urban perspective, and also a call for bold new national priorities, something very different from what you'll see from the other politicians in the race.
Let me ask Mr. Marrou, the Libertarian Party's been around a long time, but you've never gotten more than, what, 1.1% of the vote? What sort of a threshold do you set for yourself? How do you get beyond those existing barriers?
Actually, we've only been around 20 years. We've elected about 200 libertarians around the country, including 3 state legislators in Alaska. I was the 3rd. During the last 6 months, we've converted 2 incumbent Republican legislators in New Hampshire to Libertarian. What we're doing is building the next major party. We are on track to become the major party of the 21st century. I think it is inevitable that we will elect a Libertarian president and Congress. It's just a question of who and when. Not only is it inevitable, we feel that it is necessary. If we do not elect Libertarians and the Republicans and Democrats continue building government the way they have, then we will enter an inflationary depression that will make the so-called Great Depression of the 30s.
Realistically, you're not going to get 30% of the vote. What are you going to get?
How much we're going to get, I don't know. Our original goals have, look like they're going to be exceeded substantially. It's really difficult to tell because we are generally not included in the polls that are taken. Sometimes we don't get the coverage from the media, particularly the newspapers, that some of the other candidates do. But we're doing very well. The latest straw poll in New Hampshire shows me in the middle of the pack of the 5 leading Democratic challengers. And this is about where we've been for the past 3 or 4 months. So
what's the middle of the pack?
Well. The middle of the pack is that in the latest straw poll, I was ahead of Harkin and Brown and neck with Kerry, behind Tsongas and fairly far behind Clinton.
Why is it, now I want to particularly ask you, Dr. Fulani, you're running as a Democrat, though you represent the New Alliance Party. How are people even going to identify exactly what you are in that context?
Well, I think people see what I am by virtue of what I do. One of the successes of the campaign thus far has been, along with other so-called fringe candidates, and I might add that that's how the Democrats relate to the people in the state of New Hampshire, is to raise the issue of the fight and the need for more democracy in America, the whole issue of inclusion, the issue of criteria. And that's extremely important because I think until we have a breakthrough in how this process works, that the concerns of ordinary people, the issue of jobs, the issue of health care, will not be on the agenda in this country.
What would you define as a breakthrough in the process? What do you mean by that?
Well, I think one thing would be to have automatic voter registration in this country so that people are able to go to the polls and vote. I think without all of the rigmarole that they're involved in. I think one of the other things would be to challenge the relationship between political action committees and our Congress and Senate. They've given over $50 or $60 million in the last 15 years, these wealthy medical industrialists.
But you don't have any problem collecting money.
Well, that money has come from people on whose doors we've knocked, ordinary working people, middle-income people, people who are saying by virtue of their donations to my campaign that they want to make sure that there are more choices, and they don't want the choices to simply be this handful of, picked candidates. I think we have to challenge...
Let me ask this, Mr. Agran, then. Is money part of the problem?
Well, I don't think so. It shouldn't be a part of the problem. Dr. Fulani, of course, has been a prodigious fundraiser. In my own case, we've raised over $250,000. These other candidates who are supposed to be big league, they haven't raised all that much money. What they have done is conspire with the Democratic Party to participate in an exclusionary process to silence other voices, to keep other voices out. That's anti-democratic. That's contrary to our democratic principles and tradition, and that's what we're fighting.
Now, who exactly is they?
The five candidates. Why is it that one of them, not a one, has the courage and the wisdom that Ronald Reagan had in 1980 when he said, I paid for this microphone, I insist that the other candidates be heard? Why? Democratic chair of the Democratic National Committee, Ron Brown, hasn't lifted a finger to see to it that I'm included. I'm on ballots across this country. My name is going to be alongside the five in Connecticut, in Illinois, in South Dakota. It's going to be the five and me. And yet only the five will have been heard and seen in these televised debates. That's not fair.
Just briefly before we take a break, being outside the Democratic Party, is that a separate issue as far as you're concerned? Or
What's that, money? Being on the ballot?
Well, money's one issue, but getting on the ballot.
The Democrat and Republican parties very purposely make it very difficult for anyone other than Democrats and Republicans to get on the party, which is terrible considering that we've already elected 4 presidents from minor parties, including Abraham Lincoln in 1860. And yet in those days, the rules were the same for everybody. Today, they're not. I have to go out and across the country get about 1 million signatures just to get my name and my running mate, Dr. Nancy Lord, name on the ballot. The Democrats and Republicans don't have to do that. You add that to the fact that the 2 major parties have taken the presidential debates away from the League of Women Voters. That hurts, and of course the 4 major networks have set up the News Election Service, which literally and officially refuses to report any votes except Democrat and Republican votes. This is bad, this is egregious, this is immoral, but it goes on, and it's something we have to live with.
And I think the votes will be reported. We need to take a break, and we'll be right back.
In Switzerland, Ricola has been soothing sore throats and relieving coughs naturally for over 60 years. Ricola is a blend of 10 organically grown alpine herbs and natural flavors, providing pleasant-tasting natural relief. Ricola, the natural choice for soothing sore throats and relieving coughs naturally.
Samson, darling, that old loincloth does nothing for you.
It's comfortable, Delilah. What should I wear?
Gird those lovely loins in something temptingly different.
Ribbed whites?
From Fruit of the Loom.
Hey, incredible! This ribbed cotton is more than comfortable.
It moves with you.
Yeah, and the cut's trimmer.
I see, my mighty one.
They feel great!
For extra comfort and style, take Fruit of the Loom ribbed whites.
Sam, I told you to get a haircut.
Have you had your V8 today? Did you know that V8 juice has less than half the calories of that apple?
Wow!
Did you know that V8 has more vitamins A and C than that tossed salad?
Wow!
And did you know that V8 is 100% vegetable juice, so it has no fat, unlike that low-fat yogurt?
Wow!
So how do you feel now that you know these things?
Wow! I gotta have a V8.
V8 is a nutritious blend of 8 vegetable juices that taste terrific. Have you had your V8 today?
TBS presents 3 nights of television dedicated to solving our most critical environmental challenges. The Save the Earth specials, beginning Sunday night, February 23rd on TBS.
Let me ask you each briefly to define one thing that sets you apart, that makes you distinct from the other candidates, either Republican or Democrat, starting with Mr. Marrou.
We want to cut government, reduce regulation, and reduce taxes. We want to repeal the income tax and abolish the IRS. We want to bring the troops back home to defend the United States of America. We want to stop subsidies of harmful drugs such as tobacco.
Haven't I heard Pat Buchanan say some of those things? Or for that matter, George Bush says he wants to cut government.
I don't think Pat Buchanan has said he wants to repeal the entire income tax and abolish the IRS. He hasn't said that. And besides that, he's a Republican. George Bush said, read my lips, no new taxes. He lied and broke his word. Ronald Reagan said he was going to cut government, reduce the debt. He didn't. He tripled the national debt and doubled the size of government. We are serious. Every Libertarian who's ever been elected out of the 200 has always voted against higher taxes and more bureaucracy. We are serious about this.
Mr. Agran, what makes you different from the other Democrats?
Now that the Cold War's over, I want to capitalize on that. The other Democrats talk about health care, they talk about education, they talk about improving our infrastructure, rebuilding the country here at home, but not a one of them has a clue as to how to get the job done. The only way to get the job done is to raise taxes, and of course they're all opposed to that, or to cut spending elsewhere and bring those resources home. I propose that now we cut the military budget in half, bring those resources home immediately. The best that's been offered so far is Harkin's rather timid proposal to cut the military budget by 50% over 10 years.
So you're not a Harkin Democrat?
Not by any shot, because we can't wait 10 years. We can't wait 10 years to bring those resources home and begin rebuilding the country. We have to do it right now with immediate steps that will begin to translate into real improvements right here at home within 6 months, a year, 2 years at the most.
Dr. Fulani?
Clinton's reputation is that if you say one thing to him, he'll come up with 10 plans for economic growth and development, in spite of the fact that Arkansas is one of the poorest states in the nation. One of the things that the Democratic Party, Big Five, won't deal with is that even though they have these reforms in mind, the process through which the reforms have to go, the legislators, so on and so forth, will end up bringing them to naught. In fact, you can't identify bills and things that they've suggested by the time they're finished with, because they're all washed out because of corruption and because of tax control. How are you going to beat the legislative process? What I'm suggesting that we must do in America is that we have to take on the literal process of bringing people straight smack dab into participating so that we are in the driver's seat. The only wealth that the people of this country have left is political wealth, our participation, and we have been locked out by massive restrictions by the Democrats and Republicans. The way that we must come in is that we have to be able to vote, we have to be able to participate in referendums. One thing, for example, when you have the IRS form, if we had a pie that laid out how all monies are currently spent in this country, and people were able to check off boxes like you do for matching funds that says, I want my money to go to this, I don't want it to go to congressional raises, I don't want it to go to building any more bombs, I want it to go to schools. That could be used as an initiative to identify the priorities that people want set in this nation if, in fact, we were talking about a democratic process. The Big Five, no matter how much they talk, can't produce these reforms. They haven't been able to, because what they're working with, the entire process is so corrupt, it just does not work for our people. What makes me different is that I'm building and fighting for more democracy in America so that we the people can be heard, ordinary people, even though we don't fit the mold of rich white men.
Do you want to address this pie in any sense? I suspect that you might have a very different view of it.
Far too many ills on rich white men. I'm not rich, but I am a white man, and I don't care being lumped in with these other people. To me, the real issue is the fact that this country, the founders of this country were essentially all libertarian. Thomas Jefferson said that government is best which governs least. We need to get back to the limited government that the founders of this country had in mind. They wrote the Constitution specifically for the purpose of limiting the power, size, influence, and expense of government. We need to restore that kind of constitutional government and not try to blame it on any one particular group in our society.
Let me jump in.
Go ahead, very briefly.
Yes, I'm a self-government Democrat. I'm a liberal Democrat. I'm a progressive Democrat. I'm a lifelong Democrat, but I'm a self-government Democrat. I believe in the power of the people to govern their own affairs if the resources are returned to the people, returned to the cities, to the towns, to the school districts, and in turn to the people of the United States to rebuild their own country. One of the difficulties all of us have is that we are participants in a process that is now so exclusionary, it's very difficult to even connect with ordinary citizens. That's why we run around listing 800 numbers and trying to effectuate means by which people can contact us.
Well, let me ask you about that, because in New Hampshire is the one place that almost every political savvy individual says you can connect with the individual. It's retail politics. If you can go out across New Hampshire, and each of you has, and still not generate much of a vote, what's your argument?
Well, first of all, we will generate something of a vote.
Well, but if you're closed out, 3% here and 2% there.
Well, but if you're closed out of the debates, of the forums, of the opportunity to be seen on television, if you're not real until you're seen on television, then what kind of a campaign can you conduct? In fact, ours are energetic campaigns. I'm going to be in this campaign long after some of these other big shot candidates are out of it. Incidentally, I do want to list my 800 numbers so people can send me some money or call us. It's 800.
Well, you can do that another place.
No,
we're not in the 800 number business here.
9425.
Let me ask you one other thing before we run out of time here. The major parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, don't seem to fear any of you or most of the other 60 people who are on the ballot up in New Hampshire. What they do seem to fear is a third-party candidacy of the likes of David Duke. Why is that?
I don't think that's true. First of all, I've been viciously attacked by the Democratic Party. They have baited me as a cult. They accuse me of being a brainwasher. They've put out newspapers that have attacked. I think a statement of their fear is the lack of participation on the part of candidates. I've raised more money than 2 of the so-called Big Five, and they've changed the criteria so that the only people who could participate in the debates who were African Americans in the history of this country would have been 2 people, one of whom is dead, and only 4 women. But I just wanted to say one other thing about who I am. I am an African American woman who is saying that in the 1992 presidential race, if we want to deal with the economy, we have to broaden our democracy, and that I am a better manager.
Before we run out of time, I would like to get the question answered, Mr. Marrou.
The 2 major parties seem to be trying to blame Lyndon LaRouche on us. He is not a Libertarian. He's a Democrat. He's been a Democrat for many years, and he's running in the New Hampshire primary as a Democrat. In fact, there have been allegations he's linked to Dr. Fulani's party. I don't know whether he is, but he definitely is not a Libertarian.
What about the David Duke question? Why is he feared as a third-party candidate?
He's not feared. He's actually given a lot of coverage. That's different.
They are concerned that maybe in our democracy we can't trust the people. I say get David Duke on the ballot, let him be in debates, let me be in debates, let the people decide. If the people decide and repudiate the likes of Duke, then we know we've got a democracy that's vibrant.
I thank you all. We've run out of time. Larry Agran, Lenora Fulani, Andrea Marrou, thank you for being with us. I'll be back in a moment with a final thought on the New Hampshire primary.
American Express. May I help you, sir? American Express. Hello, American Express.
American Express now gives you an easy way to apply for membership. All you have to do is call.
Oh, American Express. Can I apply for the card over the phone?
Yes, you can. All I'll need is some information.
Great.
For those who qualify, the card comes with a world of privileges.
That didn't take long at all. Thanks.
Privileges that give you an extra measure of financial flexibility.
Should we, honey?
Do you like it?
I love it.
Then we'll take it.
Simply call 1-800-THE-CARD to apply. Privileges that automatically protect the things you buy up to $1,000 for 90 days, whether they're damaged or stolen. And privileges that extend the free repair period offered under most manufacturers' warranties.
American Express? How do I apply for membership? I can help you. I'll take the information for membership right now. Over the phone? Great.
Privileges that include help when you need it.
Yeah, American Express. I lost my wallet, my cash, and all my cards.
Mr. Richards, we can have another card for you by tomorrow.
American Express. I'd like you to take my application for membership if you could.
I'd be glad to, sir.
Great.
Privileges that give you around-the-clock access to our legal and medical referral service.
We lost our luggage. Worst part is the rest of my wife's medicine was in it.
Don't worry. American Express can help. American Express? I'd like to apply for the card.
Call 1-800-THE-CARD. We'll take your application over the phone and start processing it right away.
That was so easy. Thank you. And thank you for calling American Express. On the card, sir?
No need to wrap it.
Membership has its privileges, so call 1-800-THE-CARD now.
On the Republican front, the Bush Quail campaign once figured it could eliminate the pesky Pat Buchanan factor in New Hampshire. You don't hear that anymore. With Buchanan now calculated to win 1/4 to 1/3 of the New Hampshire Republican votes, Bush campaign aides acknowledge Buchanan could sustain his conservative challenge well through the primaries. The Bush campaign would not like to see Buchanan last until the June 2nd windup in California. That's bedrock conservative ground, Ronald Reagan country. George Bush claims Ronald Reagan's endorsement. Pat Buchanan claims Reagan's ideological legacy. For more presidential politics, watch the 5 major Democratic candidates debate live from New Hampshire, Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, here on CNN. Also on CNN tomorrow, Newsmaker Sunday will look at the alarming threat posed by the erosion of the Earth's protective ozone shield and what can be done about it. The guests are Environmental Protection Agency head William Riley and Democratic Senator Al Gore. That's Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern on CNN. For Newsmaker Saturday, thanks for being with us. I'm Charles Bierbauer in Washington.
Transcript of Newsmaker Saturday with Charles Bierbauer. Send $4 to Newsmaker Saturday Transcripts. Journal Graphics, 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203. or call 1-303-831-9000. Your comments may be sent to the same address.
You can actually make more money during a recession if you know how. Every week since 1923, the Kiplinger-Washington letter has helped readers take advantage of profitable opportunities in good times and bad. It takes you behind the headlines and shows you ingenious new ways to make and save money in your business and personal affairs. It answers your toughest questions about your career, investments, your taxes. The next 4 issues from Kiplinger are yours free when you call now. And when you call today, you'll also receive free this 48-page guide, Investments for Today and Tomorrow. Discover how you can get in on the last great tax shelter, plus so much more. Call now. Kiplinger will start your 4 free issues and bill you only $48. That's $15 off the regular rate. If you're not completely satisfied, return the bill marked canceled and owe nothing. Call 1-800-776-7200. That's 1-800-776-7200.
Tonight, the Democrats look for a front-runner. The Republicans watch a contender. What can America expect from the New Hampshire primary on CNN's Capital Gang, 11:30 p.m. Eastern tonight?
Stay tuned to CNN. The World Today is next.
At Crescent, our people make the difference. Friendly professionals ready to help you find the right car, truck, or van at the right price and provide reliable, convenient service after the sale. Crescent Chevrolet Geo, downtown for 60 years.
Friendly Crescent Chevrolet.
This is no ordinary bird. It's a least tern, an endangered species that nests and feeds at an Iowa power plant near Council Bluffs. Iowa Power manages a plan to protect its habitat. This is no ordinary lump of coal. It's low-sulfur coal. It's better for our environment, and it's the only kind of coal we buy. When it comes to taking care of the world we live in, many of the most ordinary things we can do today won't seem so ordinary tomorrow.
She chose a difficult routine, but Thompson looks extremely poised and graceful.
And Newsome with a beautiful dive. It's obvious the judges like that one.
This part of the course has given skiers trouble all day, but Riley looks well on his way to a goal.
Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Iowa reminds those who aren't competing in Elberville that good health and fitness are important to you, too. After all, just because you aren't a U.S. Olympic team athlete doesn't mean you can't feel like one.
We're at Robert's Dairy to study the making of their low-fat yogurt. After primping themselves for a formal evening out, the yogurt cows sashay past the paparazzi into the milking complex. Ah, yesterday, Pachelbel's Cannon in D. Today, the Blue Danube Waltz, the particular favorite of the blueberry cow. One thing is clear, Robert's yogurt cows are the product of good breeding and active culture.
Roberts, how do you make it taste so good?
This is CNN.
The jury in Jeffrey Dahmer's Sanity trial reaches its verdict.
President Bush travels north trying to keep his polling numbers from going south.
And California's swollen rivers get another dose of rain and snow.
From CNN, this is The World Today with Jonathan Mann and Andrea Arceneaux at the CNN Center in Atlanta.
Good evening. After deliberating for nearly 10 hours, a Milwaukee jury has returned its verdicts in the Jeffrey Dahmer case.
The state of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey Dahmer, case number F912542, a special verdict. Question 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 1 of the information in regard to the death of James E. Dockstader, did the defendant, Jeffrey L. Dahmer, have a mental disease? Answer, no.
The jury voted 10-2 on each of the 15 counts that the admitted killer was sane at the time of the murder. There's a mandatory life sentence for each count. Under Wisconsin law, only 10 of the jurors have to agree for the verdict to be valid. The decision means Dahmer, who pleaded guilty to the murders, will receive a mandatory life sentence. Just after the announcement, both sides in the case offered their perspective.
He's not psychotic. He is definitely not psychotic. He's not out of touch with reality. He has no delusions. He has no hallucinations. The biggest decision for him, without which there can be no treatment, is a decision to get it. He was exposed to Dr. Rosen for 3/4 of a year and refused treatment after the indecent exposure case. Nothing will happen to this man until he decides that he wants to change the content of his fantasies.
The finding that it was not mental disease doesn't mean that he wasn't a paraphilic that had very, very serious problems. So he gets some peace of mind from that, obviously. Jeffrey Dahmer told me at the very beginning that he wanted to tell the world the story one way or the other so that he could put an end to this being either a racial or a hatred crime kind of situation. And I think we've accomplished that goal.
CNN's Margaret Lowry has been covering the gruesome trial and has this look at the arguments leading up to today's decision.
This is how Jeffrey Dahmer looked for most of the trial, eyes cast down, only an occasional outward display of inner tension, despite the battle of experts being waged around him.
To make sure you're objective and fair and balanced.
I'm
sorry for yelling.
You're
attacking my professional and personal credibility and my integrity.
No, Doctor, you're inexperienced. That's what I'm pointing out.
Other defense witnesses fared similarly at the hands of the dry, no-nonsense prosecutor. In contrast, Dahmer's attorney, Gerald Boyle, was folksy, amiable when cross-examining.
Somebody opined that you got your BA at 16. I said, well, I know you and I respect you and I'm not trying to embarrass you.
This series of experts all agreed Dahmer was mentally and sexually disturbed. The defense?
He is driven to have sex with a dead corpse.
Independent experts the court appointed.
With antisocial, obsessive-compulsive, sadistic, fetishistic.
Even the prosecution.
He did have a psychiatric disorder.
They all agreed he knew right from wrong, but disagreed on his sanity.
A persistent danger of severely hurting or killing others.
But court-appointed experts sided with the prosecution, saying Dahmer showed repeatedly he could control his behavior, key under Wisconsin law.
He was so able to conform his conduct.
And that he lived in, quote, horror, H-O-R-R-O-R, horror of being discovered.
Early on, the judge ordered the media not to show pictures of the jurors, but they could be seen in person from the public gallery, largely expressionless through testimony ranging from unspeakably graphic to simply bizarre.
Talking to the head that's been severed, that's seeing himself as continuing on in an intimate relationship by eating somebody.
All right, Doctor, did he tell you that he talked to the head? Did he tell you that?
No.
The prosecution saved high-profile, high-cost expert Park Dietz for last. He told the jury in Dahmer's words just how close Dahmer came to getting away with it all.
And I was debating on whether to keep the skulls that I had or to just acidify everything and get rid of all of the evidence.
It was this man, Tracy Edwards, whose escape from Dahmer last July brought the whole terrible story of Jeffrey Dahmer to light.
What was going through your mind as to who you were sitting next to who was doing all these things?
A bizarre individual, someone that was very confused at this time.
A bizarre individual indeed. Nonetheless, the jury says he was sane, and that means Jeffrey Dahmer will spend the rest of his life in prison. Margaret Lowry, CNN, Milwaukee.
All the major presidential candidates were in New Hampshire today, each of them making a final push before Tuesday's first-in-the-nation primary. The latest CNN USA Today Gallup tracking poll of likely Republican voters shows President Bush with a 58 to 34% lead over Pat Buchanan. 8% remain undecided or chose other candidates. For the Democrats, former Senator Paul Tsongas of Massachusetts still holds a strong lead. He is favored by 39% of the likely Democratic voters. Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton, who used to lead the polls, is at 23%. Senator Tom Harkin of Iowa has 14%. We have two reports now, one for each party on today's events on the hustings. We begin with CNN's Mary Tillotson with the Republicans.
On a mission to shake as many hands, admire as many children, win as many votes as he can before Tuesday, George Bush is spending the weekend in New Hampshire.
We can do it.
But even the crowd who welcomed the president to Nashua had a few interlopers, sign of the economic hard times and voter disenchantment in the state.
I'm in a tough race, but I've been in tough races before, and the stakes are high, not just for me, but for you and for this country. And I need your help, and I am asking for your support.
Mr. Bush defended his record without ever naming the Democrats and Republicans who are challenging him here.
Let me just say, I think the people here might be getting just a little bit tired of all the negative campaign, all the attack dog advertisements coming at them from left and right. I'm going to continue with a positive campaign, and first on the economy. We've got to get this economy moving again.
In a campaign stop at Goffstown, movie muscle man Arnold Schwarzenegger got more applause than the president and had fewer qualms about naming the guys Mr. Bush wants to beat.
I wanted to vote. At the same time, send a message to Congress. At the same time, send a message to Pat Buchanan. Hasta la vista, baby. Thank you.
While Schwarzenegger and the president were stumping New Hampshire, so was Pat Buchanan. He was telling people here a vote for him would send George Bush a message. CNN, USA Today, Gallup, and other polling services show Buchanan gaining on the president as the primary comes down to the wire.
Mr. Bush and his friends in Washington are in for a surprise. Come Tuesday, the Buchanan brigades are going to run head-on into the hollow army of King George and cut through it like butter.
Even some Bush campaign strategists say Buchanan may win 35% of the Republican vote, and another 2 or 3% could go to businessman Jack LaLanne, who has spent $500,000 on his campaign. That could mean an embarrassingly slim victory for the president, which is what this weekend is designed to prevent. Mary Tillotson, CNN, Goffstown, New Hampshire.
Former Senator Paul Tsongas of Massachusetts, the frontrunner in the polls in New Hampshire, probably best captured the weekend atmosphere here during a speech to campaign volunteers.
I'm asking you not to eat, not to sleep, forget you're married, ignore your children. We can do it. We can do it. It's there.
The beneficiary of Bill Clinton's drop in the polls, Tsongas is counting on his detailed economic message to carry him to victory on Tuesday.
Appreciate what you're doing back here. I enjoyed working with you.
Clinton, meanwhile, is making a heavy investment in retail politics and television. The candidate himself on Saturday went door to door, handing out some of the 20,000 campaign videotapes being distributed to targeted New Hampshire voters. In the past few days, Clinton has also used 2.5 hours of paid TV time. Campaign advisors say the strategy is to take their candidate's message directly to the people. Clinton says it is working.
This is an important day. I want the people to see me out here working hard, reaching out to them, fighting to the last dog dies.
With Tsongas and Clinton battling for the top spot in Tuesday's Democratic primary, there is a heated contest between Senators Tom Harkin and Bob Kerrey for an expected third-place finish. Harkin, Saturday, again attacked his opponents. One setting, a Dover factory scheduled to be shut down. Its 200 jobs lost to Mexico.
I am the only candidate in this race, the only one who stood against and voted against George Bush's fast-tracking jobs to Mexico.
But Tom Harkin has taken special aim at Bob Kerrey, and Kerrey is using a new TV ad to shoot back.
Tom Harkin is attacking Bob Kerrey, but he's wrong on the facts. Tom Harkin, old-style Democrat, old-style negative campaign.
Kerrey on Saturday had breakfast with veterans in Concord. Later, in Dover, seeming more at ease with himself than he has been over the past few weeks, remained focused on his major issue, health care.
I hope in this campaign we in the state of New Hampshire will make national health insurance a defining issue between Democrats who care and indifferent Republicans who frankly don't seem to give a damn.
And former California Governor Jerry Brown, running last in the polls, showcased himself at a rally for Haitians in Manchester.
It's time to heal the economy, it's time to heal the environment, and it's time to heal the inequality.
All of this the run-up to what could be one of the most important events of the campaign here, the Democrats' 90-minute CNN TV debate set for Sunday night at St. Anselm College. This season of Democratic presidential politics in New Hampshire always promised to have a frenzied wind-up, making these final few days of primary campaigning in the Granite State a case of promise fulfilled. Gene Randall, CNN, Manchester, New Hampshire.
You can watch the debate among the top Democratic candidates tomorrow. CNN and the League of Women Voters are co-sponsoring the debate, which will air on CNN tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. The debate will be followed by a special election edition of Larry King Live. And just ahead on the world today, the Los Angeles area copes with disaster on several fronts. A fire in a downtown high-rise and more rain on top of this week's devastating floods. We'll have details. Stay with us.
You know, I can still remember the very first candy given to me by my grandfather. It was Werther's Original, and I was 4. I had a little trouble opening that shiny golden wrapper, but then, well, I'll never forget that first taste. Sweet and creamy and just plain good. But there was something else, too. I remember feeling I must be somebody very special when my grandpa gave me his wonderful butter candy. So, now I'm the grandfather.